Greetings, everyone. Late the Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with no nerds. It's just me, nobody else. So I just want to say hi to start off, and thanks again to everyone who helped with the GoFundMe to get Nerdarchist Dave and Nerdarchist Ted out to LA to be on the Geek and Sundry's GM tips with Satine Phoenix. And I am just going to make sure I have chat access here. And hopefully the event started and I'm not talking to thin air. You can do me a favor and just let me know that you can hear me. That would be really appreciated. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. There's a lot to talk about. At least it seems like a lot because normally everybody else is talking and I just kind of chill and put in when I, okay, great. Thank you very much. And great. Thanks for letting me know. So I'm actually just going to get into the list and then we can just kind of do whatever we would like. So if you guys have any questions, guys and gals have any questions, just let me know in the comments and we'll get to those after I get through the stuff that needs to be discussed. So like always, links are in the description for everything that we did on the news, on the articles that we did on the internet, on our nerdarchy.com channel, website, and the YouTube channel as well. We have all that as there as well. So all the links for the past week, for all the content we do for free is there. And first I wanted to say thanks again for the past guests, which I do not recall them right now. As let me just look in the description and I'll get it. So we have Tales from the Loop role-playing game, and we also have Doug helped me out with several of the live chats this week, so I wanted to thank him. He can't be on today because he's got to do some other work, so it's understandable. And also we did live chat with Creature Curation with Brian Colin. And then we had the regular games like Ether, the Ether Storm, and the Scarlet Sisterhoods and other games that were there as well. Okay, great. Now, one thing I wanted to get into is there is a dungeon crate, and it's a Nerdarchy curated crate, so it's going to have things like Beardspiration and a few other things, and some art as us as dwarves from the I think it's Arknight flat packs. So that's going to be there as well. And if you sign up by August 4th, you'll be able to get access to that Nerdarchy curated crate. We're also getting some, but we're only getting like one extra. So it's not like we can just, you know, if you don't get them now, you're pretty much not going to get them. And currently, like I said, Nerdarchist Dave and Nerdarchist Ted are over in on the West Coast, in the LA area, and they're going to be hanging out at the Emerald Nights from 2 to 5 p.m. on Sunday, July 30th. And I also wanted to thank Emerald Night for letting them use the space. So anybody that's going to try and hang out with them, if you're listening right now, they're going to be at the Emerald Nights. Nights like medieval nights, not nights at lake p.m. From 2 to 5 p.m. on Sunday, July 30th. And next week we'll announce the giveaway winner, and next week we will also announce the fan game, just to let you know. Oh, Bards in the Basement, you love the Spelljammer game? I mean, the Spelljammer talk yesterday, that's great. I really liked it too. In fact, I'm going to try and work with Doug to put out some more, because it seems to be something that people that come to the nerdarchy.com, they're interested in seeing more of. So I would like to work on that with Doug, and we can kind of get 5th edition Spelljammer started for us anyway, and like what we're going to do. So I'm interested in running a campaign in that for sure. Now, another thing I wanted to bring up is you can still sign up for Patreon. You've got like a few days left. It's before the end of the month. And if you do that, you'll be getting access to our Patreon rewards based on the level you're at. So if you're at the $2, well, if you're at the $1 level, you just get entered into the fan games. So when we pick the fan game entries for next week, you get automatically entered in for being a Patreon supporter, even at the dollar level. $2 would be the Mage Forge, which is a spore-filled pouch. It'll have a better name, but right now that's the name. The Monster Menagerie is a $3 level, and it's going to be a series of fungal shamblers, which are kind of like undead creations that are nature-based. So it's really like, you know, if you think of like the cordyceps, I think they're called, the things that control and kind of direct creatures around. They were in the X-Files as like a one that directed humans around, but they were also just like naturally found that control ants and other things like that for them to move around. So it's going to be kind of like inspired by that, but it's going to be geared towards kind of like undead but not undead. And that's the Monster Menagerie. For the friend or foe, we have Musharu, which is a Myconid seer. For Terrible Terrain, I have the finale of Dance of the Thousand Fairies, the Midnight Groove. And for Lost Lore, we have Dank Fungus Spells. And the Terrible Terrain, is the friend or foe is the $5 level. Terrible Terrain is the 7, and Lost Lore is the 10. Yeah, cordyceps. Right. Well, that's really all that I had to get out and make sure I talk about. Again, if you had missed it, thanks again for the people who helped with the GoFundMe account for us to get the guys out to LA. We didn't all get to go because we just didn't have the money for it. It's like $5,000 or $6,000 to get us all out there with all the stuff we needed. So Ted, Nerdarchy Ted and Nerdarchy Dave are on a shoestring budget over there. But they made it out there, and they're going to be recording today sometime. They're going to be recording with Satine Phoenix of Maze Arcana for the GM Tips series that's going to be featured on Geek and Sundry. So we don't know when that's going to actually show on their channel, but it will be out there. I figure the next month or two, sometime they'll put it out. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misquoting the prices on that stuff. Okay. So how many of you are into reading the articles on the website? Because like I said, I am interested in going forward and producing more articles for the Spelljammer. For like within the spirit of 5e, I'm not just porting stuff over. Similarly to how I worked on Psionics and how I worked on, I'm also working on Dark Sun. For 5e, I'm not just saying, well, I'm just converting whatever was there to 5th edition. I also want to change certain concepts in it. Like I am interested in using the Astral Sea as the medium which you move through everything to go from one campaign setting or one world to another. Rather than using the flow that they have in the original like 2nd edition stuff. So I want D&D in space. I want Spelljammer, but I don't want necessarily to add a whole bunch of different rules that are unnecessary. And the Astral Sea is already a concept that's brought up in the Mind Flayer monster manual section, and I think it's appropriate. You know, Astral Sea could connect to Limbo. The Astral Sea could connect planes together. And the Astral Sea could also connect these like crystal sphere, which contain the different planets or different campaign settings. Well, Jimmy McCoy, did you get in contact with those guys? Thank you for offering some stuff for them. It might be just it's a kind of a far drive. I'm not really sure. Again, I don't know how far it is from their hotel to the place they're going to be doing the recording. And the Kickstarter is still active. Which Kickstarter you're talking about? Yeah, Bards in the Basement. Yeah, I like that the use of the Astral Sea. I think it's already in the game. The Astral is something that you can use as spells to get access to, and as well as planes are already in the game through different spells and things, and the way the general material plane's set up. So I see the Astral Sea as working nicely within the confines of what's already there, rather than adding something completely different. Now, they could write rules for how the Astral Sea actually works when you have a spelljamming helm, or when you have a ship or a craft. So I could see adding rules to that, but I would not want to just want to add a whole other concept that then has to have a whole other rule set and doesn't connect with anything else. Well, Jimmy McCoy, thank you for offering anyway, even if they said it was a bit too far. But yeah, they're on a lot of time constraint they're restrained by their time. Like if it takes them 2 hours to get someplace and back, that might be a place they aren't able to go. Because then you figure with traffic and everything. Oh, Comic Book University. I think you mean the GoFundMe, not the Kickstarter. Yeah, Tesmic, D&D in space sounds sweet. Makes me excited for Starfinder. Yes, I'm also excited for Starfinder. I'm not like making this in reaction to Starfinder coming out. I also am interested in playing Harbinger, which is Absolute Tabletop's version of like a spacefaring thing, because it's a little bit darker, and I think something that's themed darker isn't just going to be this. You know, you can always. It's kind of like a game that's designed to be horror. Probably is going to do horror better than a game that's designed for general use, and then you add horror to it. So a game that's designed to be a kind of like a grim space game like Harbinger seems, I think is going to be more apt to be that kind of style. And I would enjoy playing that, but I'd also like to see the type of rules, the type of games that you come out with for Starfinder, because it seems like a kind of like a general space fantasy game. Oh, hey, Doug, thank you for working on all that Nerdarchy stuff that you're doing, and thanks for stopping by. Yes, celebrities do have schedules. They were able to, if you hadn't checked it out on the Facebook page, they posted that they got to hang out a little bit, or at least say hi to Matt Mercer. And they got a tour of Geek and Sundry on Thursday. So that was really exciting. So I'm hoping that went well. And another thing I wanted to talk about, we had mentioned in the past 2 live streams. Did anyone check the D&D and Incarcerated, the D&D people who were in prison that were playing, and how hard it was and what they had to do to actually get that to happen? That was a really interesting article and it was a short documentary, but hopefully they're going to expand upon that at some later date based on its popularity. And we also talked about earlier in the week, we had a video on pay to play, and I just figured I'd mention that I am interested in doing pay to play dungeon mastering. It'll be online. It'll probably be on Twitch, or it will be. I mean, if I get together a whole bunch of people who want to do unrecorded, I could do it that way. But if you want to do that, if you're interested in that, email me at nathannerdarch@gmail.com, and we can discuss that. I've got some people interested. Just kind of like organizing everything. Just had a new child, so it's like the fifth child. Kind of crazy going on at the house right now. So I haven't started the actual games, but once I get everything settled and once everything kind of like gets more evened out, that's when I expect to be able to go forward with that and start them. Because once I start them, I don't want to say, oh, I've got to stop because something came up. So I really want to know that foundationally I can handle doing the amount of games that I'm interested in doing without messing anything up. Oh, I missed that. Bards in the Basement. You're saying that one of them on the video commented that they shot hundreds of hours of footage. Yeah, that's what I would expect for a documentary like this, is that they're going to be interviewing lots and lots of people, dozens of people, and getting a lot of footage, and then having to sift through it. So maybe this is just their, hey, maybe it's like an interest post. It was a good standalone 10-minute video, but it had me feeling like, yeah, they just kind of ran through the idea and concept rather than really diving into it with personal stories. And they got like one or two guys talking, but like personal stories of 6 to 7 people at least that I'd be interested in. And yeah, using soap dice, that makes sense. Well, I mean, the nice thing I thought was when they used the toilet paper and water, and then they shoved it into different sharp corners. So you'd have like the corner at a windowsill or something that's sharp, and you'd shove the die in there, and then you just rotate it, shove it in there again, and then let it dry, and then wet it, and then do it again until you had. I mean, I would roll those dice and be confident, and then they were really good looking dice for being made out of toilet paper with some marker on them. And they also, the other thing I saw, well, I mean, I've done origami dice before, so they would do origami, or they would do these paper cutouts. So they'd have these paper forms that they would just fold to turn into dice with adhesive, and they'd use like jam or toothpaste or something like that. Yeah, there's a link to the video that's our discussion on it, and then in that video there is a link to both the video and the article that's the documentary. So if you head to the D&D Incarcerated, which is in the links below, you'll be able to click on that, and then that will take you to that video of Duggan and myself discussing it. And then when we in the description there is the links to the article and the documentary piece. Yeah, I really enjoyed making paper dice. 2012 Jammer. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I like doing the origami, and because it's like challenging, especially the ones that fit together. They're like 5 or 6 pieces of paper, and they all fit together and lock together to form that shape. And you know what? Back in the day, Ted and I did Nerdcraft, and we actually did a 6-sided die of that. So that's a video that you can go check out. It's kind of old. I don't know what quality it is. I can't speak for the quality, but we did make origami dice on this channel. Well, hey, Paul, right from Japan. Actually, since somebody started sounding off, would you guys like to just sound off in the comments, and we'll go through the ritual of stating who's from where. All right, we have Paul Wright, like I said, from Japan. We have Sean Carr from Redmont, Oregon. Paul Hughes from Wales. Wilder Smith from New York. Tesmic from Australia. Bards in the Basement is from Niagara Falls. Kirkish 001, Eureka, California. Steve from Phoenix, Arizona. Bob 2000 or 2000 or 000. I'm just going to say 000 because it sounds funnier. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Scratch Paper Games from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. Nordic Dragon 89 from Dalarna, Sweden. 2012 Jammer, Baltimore, Maryland. Tyler McAllister. Taylor. I don't know why I read it. Taylor from St. Louis. Comic Book University from Thanagar. Gary Trent, T-Rust Monster from Iowa. Ivan from Venus and Mars. Brandon Etheridge from Gloucestershire. No. Gloucestershire. England. I swear I know how to say that. Hulk Gamer from Musala, Montana. I'll check out to see how to say that again. I just can't say it right now. Oh yeah, yeah. And David Jones. We've got Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Yeah. I'm here until the guys get back from LA, and if they never come back, I will always be here. But they should be coming back. Probably Thursday will be when the live chats resume the old style. And as of right now, I will be doing them with some help from the writers and other such people until such time. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week coming up. I think Tuesday I'm going to be discussing things with Megan, one of our staff writers, just in general stuff. And I haven't figured out what Monday and Wednesday are going to be like. I'm either going to grab a guest, or we're going to figure out something like a discussion topic to talk about. So it might be something, maybe something in the news will happen for RPGs that I'll pick up, like with the Dungeons and Dragons Incarcerated stuff. Or it might just be something like we're probably going to discuss more Spelljammer, because I think Doug and I are both on fire about doing that kind of stuff. So we'll probably like hammer out some things like exactly how the Spelljammer helms will work, and maybe some of the different ways of maneuvers for the actual Spelljammer vessels. Hey, we'll do the test. Don't tell Dave when he comes back. Be like, say Gloucestershire. Battle for the worst pronunciation. Comic Book University. Just don't tell him. It has to be quality, like case study there. Oh, Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire. Ah, there we go. Thank you. Oh, why lonely? Well, it's just me by myself, and we tend to figure out some kind of like known phrase that kind of sums up either the week or what's going to happen, what has happened, or what we presume is happening now, or what we're going to discuss. So it's the lonely road because I'm by myself and I'm walking alone. So there we go. Well, you're all here, but I'm the only one present here, right here. So I'm by myself. Oh, I also want to say Anthony Luther from Southern California, White Rabbit from Geneva, New York, and Sue Rainey from Floyd, Virginia. Nerdarch numbers 33. Yeah, yeah. The way it's titled, it does kind of look like that. But it's Quest and Adventures. Yeah, probably number 33, and then with Nathan Nerdarch is probably how I should have titled that. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of Spelljammer would be sweet, and yes, more Spelljammer. I'm Ronry. Oh, and Doug says he is playing a Spelljammer game tomorrow, so that'll be nice to go with it. Yeah, I'm taking questions, absolutely, Pastor Gal. And if I happen to miss your question, just post it again, because it's hard to. I don't want to spend too much time zipping through the chat. Okay, so we've got covering swarms and covering crafts. So crafting. I don't know how much of a crafter Doug is. I could see about Ted's the other big crafter in Nerdarchy. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The secret mission of Doug and Nate is to rebrand Nerdarchy as all space fantasy all the time. Andrew Orwin. Okay. You wants to know about updates for the pay to play games. Yes, I will be sending out something this week. I'm trying to narrow it down. Everybody kind of was split on where they wanted to play. I gave you guys 3 options and also kind of went into different times. So what I'd like to do is get together with the people that are definitely on board and like start like basically like beta test for running the game and having it go, because this will be I've done plenty of fan games, but it's going to be different, I think, with running a session 0 online, discussing characters, and having getting the format correct. And I kind of want to do that with the group of people who are interested in the pay-to-play games to start first, and kind of give a buffer before we actually start going with it. So that'll be very soon, hopefully. Jose Serrara's question: do you know if Dave and Ted are going to interview Matt Mercer for the channel? You know what? Well, they did the first step, which was actually meeting him and at least getting a picture with him. I don't know how much they talked with him, but I know they at least got this close to him. So that's a good first step. So from there, they'll have to see what can happen with it. But that would be really good, I think, for the channel as well as for the community going forward, is to get interviews with the people at that level. Oh yeah, for general pricing for the first bit, if you just email me and I'll set up the whole. I've got a whole intro email that I'll send you, and that'll give you an idea on pricing, times, time commitment, and stuff like that. Well, Ted is every nerd's nerd. White Rabbit. White Rabbit says that he has a group of nerds that we remind him of, and Ted reminds him of his best man at the wedding. And yeah, Ted is every nerd's nerd as far as I'm concerned. So, Pastor Gall, as far as crafting, I'm trying to resurrect Nerdcraft on the Nerdarchy channel. It probably will be me just doing it on my own because Ted's super busy. Not that I'm not super busy, but I would like to start adding those type of videos to the actual channel. So we'll see how it's going to be coming along. Right. Question: are there any concepts you'd want to use in a game but haven't for one reason or another? And that's from Scratch Paper Games. I want to use the madness and other extra alternate stats in the DMG. I was interested in using those at some point. Haven't yet. I may be using them for some of my pay-to-play games, but it's going to depend on who wants to play that and win. So I'm hopefully within the next year I'll be playing that type of game with using the madness rules. But that's a concept I haven't used in a game before. And also there's always monsters that I haven't used yet, but I gotta keep that to myself until I either make a video about it and don't tell you that I haven't used it yet, or go about actually presenting it in a game, a fan game or something. As far as making a scroll of cure wounds, the first level spell version, looking at the DMG and PHB for the formula on pricing as creation. You know what? If you look in the DMG, the spells, I would just see what other first level spells, what they count as far as price. Are they common? Are they uncommon? A cure spell is going to be a common or uncommon. I think it's going to be like a really low level, just above a healing potion or at the same level as a healing potion. So I would figure out something like that, where it's I think 25 gold pieces per spell level that's not bad, but you also have to be wary. Are you doing it as a player or are you doing it as the DM? Because if you're doing it as DM, you can control whether or not the players can make those scrolls. And if you do that, then that's going to be kind of easier on your end. But if you're the player and you're trying to get these available because you want to make them, that's a different scenario than if you want to make them to use them. So that's why I kind of go through what do you actually want to do with those scrolls besides just use them to have them available. Dummy Your D, I would love if you guys at some point would share how and what you prepare for a session. Always love to share and compare. That's good. I mean, we learned a lot actually from jumping on the internet and talking with people and getting different information from them. I actually have changed my play style over the years because of the interactions I've had online with different dungeon masters and different players. So I would say that basically Ted and Dave really go simplistic now. So they might think in their mind throughout the week or throughout the month, oh, what am I going to do with this? Or the players, we have Facebook groups for the players that they'll talk about and discuss what they want to do or what they have done with the treasure, with different things. So it's going to be, it's kind of like how much interaction you're going to get from the players, and also how much, if you take a lot of notes during session 0 and really work out the players' motivations, how they're all bound together. I mean, the players should be doing this as well, but all together as a group, you kind of decide, how does everybody know each other? What's going on? What's their strengths and weaknesses? Who's their enemies? So if they've got, if somebody stole an amulet from your family and you're trying to get it back and you're like tasked with attaining it so that it's back in the family, well, that same guy who's obviously a criminal because he stole an amulet, these different elements to do something, whether a magic ritual, and that's what he does. He's a magic cat burglar. He could be linked. Everybody could be linked to that person that had similar things happen, like whether it's some kind of crime or something. Those could all be the same people, because when you think about nowadays, there's all different kinds of people who are part of the criminal element of a city. But back in the day, it was a very small group of people that were all doing like the organized, like if you had more of like an organized crime element to something, or if you had somebody they kind of were known to be not the greatest moral character. So because they did they were thought to be a thief, or they went out at night at weird hours, and it might be for something completely neutral, but you have these people that kind of have that reputation. So a person that has that reputation because they actually do the thieving, that's going to build up over time, where they have stolen things from multiple people if they haven't been caught yet. So this could just simply be a very powerful person who can't really easily be caught because he can defeat simple guards, and maybe he has some kind of escape tactic or something, but getting kind of away from the thing. So there's the issue. They don't really prep much, but last time I ran a fan game, I ran Spiders from Mars, which is part of my space opera series, and I just call it space opera. It's going to probably be morphed into Spelljammer stuff, but Spiders from Mars, they were on a way station, and that way station, I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, I had written up everything that you could run that adventure with, pretty much, for the Patreons, for one of the terrible terrains. So I had it all out. So I just ran it as it was, with my understanding of what the arcane construct was going to be like, that they were going to interact with. The major NPC was an arcane holographic construct that they were going to talk to. That was part of the ship, rather than an actual physical being that walked around. So that was all done. All the descriptions were done. All the encounters. I just added more encounters to make it more of like a 3 and 4 hour adventure. But I had major talking points all written out, descriptions all written out. And I ran with it like that. And that was just really easy for me to do that rather than come up with things on the fly. So it really depends on if winging stuff is stressful to you, then it's best to write that stuff down. You might not follow it. You know, it's important to know that when you wing stuff and when you do stuff on the fly, you can still say, I'm not going to use this even though I wrote it. The problem is some people write so much stuff that they might write 6 or 7 hours worth of things, only use 2 of it for that session, maybe use another hour worth of prep, another session, but then never use that other 3 or 4 hours. And we used to do that, and that was just crazy town because it used too much time. We just couldn't do it. So I can go over some prep stuff with a while because Dave and Ted are not going to be really useful for actual prepping beyond they write a few sentences and then wing the rest of it. Because, you know, I don't think they view all the thought that goes into what they're doing over the week as prep. They don't write that stuff down. They just kind of think of it. So if you're more of like a writing to think kind of person, you write it all down. But just be prepared to not necessarily use it all, because it kind of creates, it's a weird meta game that it creates in your mind where you're like, I wrote this stuff, it's supposed to happen. Don't think of it like it's a story that people are getting taken through. Think about it as these are events that could happen, like kind of more quantum mechanics, like, you know, all floating in the ether, and they could happen, but they might also not ever happen, even though they were written down. Or they might happen differently because something else has changed. So don't stop the creativity of your players to problem solve in a creative manner because you had a specific way something was supposed to happen later. Because you can just have it happen a different way because, you know, the people thinking about that plot later, well, they're also dynamic entities in a sense. They're supposed to be thinking beings. So I'm sure if they really want it to happen, they'll figure out a different way it's got to happen. Whether that's just that can sometimes just be trying to steal back what was stolen from them in the first place. That could be something as, well, now I've got to hastily break into this place to gain access to a person or an object. So people might die rather than people not dying in the previous one because of the skillness of the aggressors. So when there's stuff that happens when you rush. So that can get an added element that just makes it harder for the NPCs to complete the task they wanted to complete. Maybe it stops them completely. And then at that point, you just be like, oh, well, he's going to go off and figure out something else. He's been thwarted this time, but he's going to go off and figure something else out. So those are all, you can still use all those components that you don't use in those sessions that you wrote them for. Just don't feel like you need to use them, because a lot of times that kind of crushes player agency a lot. And it makes them feel like they're being pulled through a story rather than creating the story as they're going. Oh, yeah, definitely. Previous Dungeons and Dragons and Mutants and Mastermind, 5th edition does have a simplicity to it. Oh, Kirk Kish 001. Was I jealous not making it into the picture with Matt? I'm sure one of our fellow nerds could Photoshop you in. You know what? I thought, wow, it's a really cool thing they're getting to do. And that would have been nice to be there in that experience. But I'm not quite jealous. I'm sure there'll be some other opportunity. Vex Bad Spider. Sadly, my anxiety disorder, make the whole thing a mess in the first place. Is that with running or playing D&D? Vex, for me, that's I've definitely have issues with like social anxiety stuff, but I found that the more I do it, it's kind of okay. So there's this guy I listen to, Jordan Peterson. He's like a psychology person, and he talks about a lot of constructing your personality and moving forward with different things. And one of the things that he said was, the more when you have like anxiety, when you retreat rather than persevere through it, you're basically telling your brain in a way, well, this is what I should be doing when I feel this way. So when I feel anxious about doing a fan game, which I feel every time I do a fan game, every time I play D&D, every time I sit down with guys I've known for 20 years to play D&D, I feel anxious. And previously, when I was like 16, 17, 18, I'd just be like, guys, I'm not coming, I'm sick. And I did that a lot, and it really pissed them off, that's for sure. But you know what? I don't do that anymore, because over time, I just realized, like, this is preventing me from living how I want to live. And I want to hang out with my friends, and I want to go play, and I want to hang out and play games and goof off and do, stuff and entertain myself. And I don't, I'm not this kind of like, I don't want to go to a ball game and stuff like that. I want to go play in D&D. So I found that the more I said, forget it, I'm just going to do whatever the heck I want, even if I feel like freaking out, the easier it is, even though, because now I still get the feelings, but now I just say, oh, I'm just going to do it like I did the past 7 times, and it's going to be fine. And I'll freak out, and it'll just be fine anyway. So that's what I've I basically trained myself that regardless of how I'm feeling in the moment, how anxious I feel or how sick I feel or whatever, I'm still going to do the thing I set out to do in the beginning, because I don't want my feelings controlling what I do in my life. So that's how I handle that. I'm not saying that's going to work for you. I'm not saying that's the way you should try and do it. I'm just saying that's what I did, because I didn't want to set up the negative feedback as which I would retreat from everything every time I had that feeling of anxiety. Oh, you're welcome, Vex. Yeah, Tesmic, good point about it. Faking it till you make it. That works in a lot of things. And, eventually the idea is you're not lying anymore. You're not faking it anymore is the sense. So. Ivan, I will tell you that as far as I'm concerned, there was no Nerdarchy thong packed with Dave. But I do not know if that's reality. I just know that the Nerdarchy thong, I believe you can purchase one on the website in the store. I call it the eye patch, but I'm pretty sure it can be used for other things. But anyway, yes, as far as I know, he did not buy one. Well, because there was a thing set up with a comic book university that if we made a certain amount, if we got a certain amount for our GoFundMe, there would be pictures of us on the beach with them on. And thankfully that did not come to pass, even though that meant not having that much money to go to LA. Oh, yes. Vex, about the other comment about Myriad Song, I actually do not know that. I'm not familiar with Myriad Song. But I would be interested in learning more about it if I look at your tips for sci-fi games like Myriad Song. If it's a sci-fi game, I'm interested in learning about it, but I'm not familiar with it. Dummy your D. Pictures in my mind go away. Hey, I didn't describe it. I could give an epic description, a la, you're in a dungeon and you find this. But I'm sure your imagination can harm you way worse than that. Yeah, Kirkish. Yeah, winging it works out for you for making a better game. If you're quick on your feet and you're good with continuity and how everything can kind of mesh together, yeah, it can work out really well for you. But if you're anxious, or you kind of like are nervous about what's going to go on, or you just don't have a direction, that's where it's kind of helpful to prep, because you have something to fall back on when you kind of blank. And rather than blanking for 5 minutes, well, yeah, you suggest the bathroom break, which is a nice fix. Be like, oh yeah, I got to go use the little boy's room. I'll be right back. And then think. You're like, all right, I'm ready. Okay, Sangin Games made it. Myriad Song. The game draws heavily inspiration from the new wave of sci fiction from late 70s and early 80s, as well as sci-fi, comic books, and progressive rock. Sounds like an interesting combination. I'll definitely have to check it out. Andrew Hurd, I'm putting together a giant flail snail for my group to hunt. Any good ideas? Well, flail snail, if you can think of, I don't know if we had any monster BFFs with it, but I would consider something that is going to be able to, like a flail snail and maybe like a spellcasting kobold or some other spellcasting creature that this flail snail is not going to care about the actual area effect spells or anything that's going to be going off in the area. Thanks, White Rabbit. Oh yeah, 2012 Jammer. You're talking about the Incarcerated video. Yeah, I would like to see more, because I would definitely like to discuss it more. And it sounds like they've got quite a lot of video footage to go through. So hopefully they'll get a nice long, like hour-long documentary out of it, or a couple more episodes. Because I think that regardless of why somebody is in jail, once you're there, you're there. So there's a difference between tormenting a person and punishing them, I guess. So I would think not being able to go anywhere that you want to go, I think that's a severe punishment. I'm not talking about like crazy stuff. I'm just talking about like, oh, you got caught with drugs, or you were a silly kid and you took something from a store and it's your third offense, so you're going to jail or whatever. Like that kind of light stuff, which is what most people are in for, either drug offenses or some like light crime. So you've got a whole bunch of people that are stuck away from the world. So, there's a difference between just confining them to an area and having them suffer more than being confined to an area, which would completely freak me out. So I've got no interest in being in that situation. So on top of that, not being able to, I mean, for me, if they said, oh, you can't listen to audiobooks and you can't read books, I think I could make it without D&D, but I couldn't make it without being in a small place, not being able to read, not being able to listen to audiobooks, and on top of that, not being able to do things like just goof around and roll some dice. So all that together, that kind of just means like, well, you're just sitting around doing nothing. So I think that's a big deal to be allowed to do that, to pursue those kind of things, even though you're incarcerated. As far as game prep, you prep NPCs. For my random game of randomness, where I randomly rolled the villain, I randomly rolled his motivations and what he was doing, and I randomly rolled the type of creatures like everything from the villain thing, and I just ran a campaign like that. It was a lot of fun. And one of the things I noticed was I also rolled a whole bunch of NPCs, like 12 NPCs, and then I assigned them to different roles based on their disposition. So it took all the kind of tropiness, I think, out of certain roles. But it also, when you saw a certain NPC and you're like, he's got these flaws, these like benefits, and you just looked at him, you're like, this guy's a blacksmith. This guy's absolutely a blacksmith. And so I had a dwarven blacksmith with a very strong, very kind of proud of his craft, and he had a lisp. So he talked with a speech impediment. And that was one of my favorite characters in that game as an NPC. But it basically, rolling up that villain, I got to space out which kind of level I wanted to play that villain at. and then I wrote all the material from before that. So I kind of like did major story arc bits throughout that kind of really helped push that campaign to where it was. And it assisted me to get through all the kind of wishy-washy, I have no idea what I want to do with this. Well, I say always, roll up something, because if you say, I don't want to do the thing I rolled up, you have made a choice. And from there, you can go on and say, all right, well, do I want the exact opposite of that? Do I want something similar to that? Or do I want to roll again and say no or yes to the next thing? So that's what I do when I'm kind of stuck on what to do in the next section. Because it's basically the randomness forces you to decide to keep the randomness or throw the randomness aside, but you've made the choice that you don't want what the randomness gave you, if that is. So you've progressed forward with the decision-making process. So you can either randomly roll again and decide whether or not you want that, or you can say, oh, you know what? That sparked an idea. I don't want this guy to be, an evil wizard. I want him to be a sorcerer who animates dead or summons monsters. Oh yeah, the taking the plot holes that confuse the players, and then you act like it was a mystery and it was all planned. Yeah, that's always fun, because in the back of your mind is like, oh, I want to tell them so bad that this was nothing, but I after you make it some kind of grand part of your bit of your storyline, and they're like, oh, we knew this was the case, and you're like, yeah, I just made that up based on what you guys said, but you don't want to. That kind of ruins the magic of it. Yeah, so I have some homework to do. Myriad Song. I'm gonna have to check that out. We're going to wrap up really soon. Anybody want some final words in, getting anything out before I'm going to sign off? Yeah, they're usually about an hour, White Rabbit. We kind of keep it around an hour. Sometimes I go over, because if I've got a little bit of time, or if I really want to, if I'm down with stuff and we're talking about it and it takes another 10, 15 minutes, that's usually fine. Oh, doing a miniature campaign where you're all tiny. That would be really cool. I'd like to do that. That sounds like something that's really fun, like kind of like a reversal of size compared, like if everything, including bugs, are dangerous to you. Vex, what was my first RPG tabletop? My first tabletop was D&D 2nd edition. Because, Heroes Quest and other things like that don't really count as RPGs. In a sense, you're really it's a board game. Those are like board games things. So I've played board games that were like Dungeons and Dragons, but I played 2nd edition first, and then I played 1st edition, or AD&D, at some point after that. But my first game was a Dark Sun game. No. That was my first game with Nerdarchy, the original crew, like Ted and Dave. My very first game was really complicated, and I ended up playing with one of my friends from my school, and it was Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition. But I was just like ridiculous multi-class character that I don't even know if it's legitimate, but he let me do it. Oh yeah, THAC0. And you know what? When 2nd edition was using THAC0, I was just, you try and like make a chart and figure out like, well, how can I switch this around? Because this just doesn't make sense. I was trying to just add pluses to the dice, pluses and minuses to the dice, before they did it in 3rd edition. So I'm glad they made the switch, because THAC0 is nice and like, nostalgic, but I wouldn't want to try and do it right now. 10 to -10 armor class. The 10 to -10 armor class, what I liked about that was it it had that bound accuracy concept to it. But you kind of got too many pluses to hit, because eventually you just needed almost nothing to hit like a negative armor class. But oh, dummy URD. Dummy Erd? Is that how you would say it? Or dummy your D? Just let me know. Just on the topic of paid GM video, my players pay me, but they just share the extra expenses that I have as DM. And you know what? I think that's totally legitimate for a normal group of people all hanging out and playing together, especially because you might not be the GM forever. So you might switch roles. Like if you're not the GM all the time, it would make sense that the whole group kind of shares the expense of certain things. And we talked about a few different aspects of that in the video. There was, you know, we got, I'm happy with the response we got, because we got a good amount of people that were just like, yeah, do whatever you want. But then we got a few people that were like, you know, saying we were deplorables, unironically saying deplorables, and irredeemables and things like that. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I was like, all right. It's like, for some people, it is like you cannot make a dime off of a hobby. But I don't know what he knows this channel is about, but we make money off this channel. Just in case no one knew that, you know, if you click a link that takes you to Amazon and we provide the link, we make a small percentage off of what you buy. There are some Kickstarter. Well, no, there's no Kickstarters. There are some things that we say, like, you know, if they're a sponsor and they have a link, they either sponsored it and gave us money, or we're making money off the link. So technically we're making money off the hobby already without pay to play dungeon mastering. So I don't know if that also falls into his list of terribleness, but there was at least one person who was like really railing against the idea of pay to play. Oh, really interesting species in the Meridians. Not Meridian. I know what it is. I'll look it back in the comments. But yeah, they really fleshed out in an interesting way. That's good. I'd like to see some cool aliens in a space game. All right. Well, a lot of you guys have to get going. I have to get going as well. So let me know what you think in the comments below. While you're at, like, share, and subscribe. Again, thank you. Myriad song. Thank you again to everyone who helped us out. Patreon supporters, our patrons, as well as anyone who donated to the GoFundMe account to get Nerdarchy Dave and Nerdarchy Ted out to LA. Again, they're going to be at the Emerald Night tomorrow, 2 to 5 for a meetup. Hopefully anybody in the area will be able to hang out with them. And until next time, stay nerdy.